Subway Train Adventure. George was up early. Today they were going to the zoo. "We are taking the subway," said the man with the yellow hat. It was George's first subway ride. "The subway is a train that runs under the ground," said the man. "It takes people and little monkeys to places all over the city." George could not wait to see the trains. He ran down the stairs, through the gate, and right into the police officer. "Wait, George, we have to pay first," the man called. "It's okay, monkeys ride for free," said the officer. They walked to the track and waited. George was confused. Where was the train? "Don't worry, George," said the man. "The train should be here soon. Let's go look at the map." "We are here at Endless Park Station. We are going to take the train all the way up to the zoo. Would you like a subway map of your own?" asked the man. George nodded his head yes. "Okay, wait here." While George waited, the train pulled into the station. George was so excited to get on the train, he forgot to wait for his friend. The man saw George on the train, but the doors closed before he could get on. "I'll meet you at the next station," shouted the man. George wasn't worried. He decided to explore the train. "Hello there," said the conductor. "Would you like to help me drive the train? This is how I control the speed. Brakes and doors," she explained. George honked the horn and moved the lever forward. The train started. George got off at the next station. The man's train arrived, but there were too many people for him to exit. "I'll wait for you at the next stop," the man called. Honk, honk. George was curious. He could hear the next train coming, but where was it? He turned around and saw one behind him. He climbed aboard. At the next stop, George realized he was back at Endless Park. How did he get there? Luckily, the police officer was there to help. The track with the up arrow goes uptown to the zoo. The track with the down arrow goes downtown to Fisherman's Wharf. Now George knew to follow the up arrow. When his train stopped at a tunnel, George saw his friend on another train. "George, take the train all the way to the zoo," shouted the man. Finally, he arrived at the zoo stop. The man was there too. George loved riding the subway, but next time he would stay close to his friend. The end. What is your favorite part of the story? My favorite part of the story is where George came back to Endless Park. Curious George built an igloo. It was a beautiful winter morning. George was up early. Next door, his friend Bill was up too. Bill was building a house out of snow. "It's called an igloo," Bill said. "I'm going to sleep in it tonight." George wanted to help. He also wanted to sleep in the igloo. It would be a lot of fun. George tried stacking some blocks of snow. It was not easy. They kept slipping and sliding. "First, you make a circle in the snow," said Bill. "The snow blocks go around the circle. This makes a sturdy base for more snow blocks to go on top." Bill showed George how to stack snow blocks on top of the base. Around and around they went until there was only a hole left at the top. "The last piece is called a keystone," Bill said. "It keeps all the other stone blocks in place." "You have to fill in all the cracks," Bill said. "This keeps the igloo nice and warm inside." They smoothed out the snow blocks. Bill and George filled all the spaces with snow. George was impressed, but Bill's igloo was a little small. George wanted to build his own igloo, a big igloo that could fit his bed and some friends and maybe a party with music. George got to work. This time he made the circle bigger. He stacked the snow blocks around and around, just as Bill had taught him. George worked on his igloo until the sun went down. It was a big igloo. It even had a window. But George was a tired monkey. He did not have time to fill in all the cracks with snow. The man with the yellow hat helped move George's warm bed into the igloo. George bundled up and went to sleep. Soon George woke up. He was very cold. The window was drafty. The cracks were letting the cold air in. George really wanted to spend a night in an igloo. What could he do? Then George had an idea. The man had told George to come inside if he got cold. So George worked quickly and built a new igloo in his living room. It was nice and warm inside the house. He crawled into his new igloo and went to sleep again. The living room was the perfect temperature for sleeping, but it was too warm for a house made of snow. George's indoor igloo began to melt. When George woke up the next morning, his igloo had melted. It had turned into a big puddle and a big mess to clean up. Lucky for George, his outdoor igloo was still standing. The big igloo was too cold for sleeping, but it was just right for a party. George and his friends spent the whole winter playing in this big igloo until it melted away in the spring. The end. What is your favorite part of the story? My favorite part of the story is when at the end, George's big igloo was just right for a party. This book is Curious George at the Aquarium. This is George. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today, George and the man with the yellow hat were visiting the aquarium. "George," said the man, "please wait here while I buy the tickets." George tried to wait, but he was so excited. What was inside? He wanted to look over the walls, but they were too high. Just then he heard a splash and a whoosh. Water flew high into the air. People cheered. What could that be? George was curious. He hopped over the gate into the aquarium. How surprised he was! Swimming right in front of George was two beluga whales. The mother and the baby beluga whale swam right past him. And not far away was a family of sea lions, diving and splashing. What fun! George noticed people walking toward a big door. Could there be more to see? He followed the crowd. Now where was he? It was darker inside and there were fish everywhere. George did not know where to look first. In one tank, there were sharp-toothed piranhas. In another tank, there were seahorses. In another tank, there was a large octopus. George saw a group of children across the room. An aquarium staff member was pointing to different sea creatures. This is a starfish. This is a clam. And this is an urchin. Nearby there's a long, low, colorful tank. It was perfect for touching. George was curious. As he reached his hand into the water, A large crab came scuttling from under a rock right toward his finger. Snap! Ouch! Poor George. He didn't like this exhibit. Do not touch. George slipped out a door into the sunlight. But, oh, what was going on here? George saw a fat, funny-looking black and white fish under the water. He watched as they flew. As he watched, they flew up out of the water. What kind of fish does that? And where did they go? George wondered. Where penguins live. George climbed up and into their exhibit. They were not fish at all, but penguins, of course. George hopped like a penguin, flapped his wings like a penguin, and waddled like a penguin. A crowd gathered and laughed, but when he slid on his belly like a penguin, the aquarium staff stopped by to check on the penguins. A monkey in the penguin exhibit? George opened the door to escape, but instead, all the penguins ran out. Penguins everywhere! The staff was angry at George. How could they catch all the penguins? In all the excitement, nobody noticed the penguin chick falling into the water. No one but George. The baby penguin hadn't learned how to swim yet. As only a monkey can, George scuttled the rope hanging over the beluga tank and swung over to the water and saved the chick. The director of the aquarium and the man with the yellow hat heard the commotion and came running. That monkey helped the baby penguin, said the boy in the crowd. No one else could have saved him, said the girl. The director thanked George for his help and made him an honorary staff member of the aquarium. George said goodbye to his new penguin friends. He could not wait to come back to the aquarium and visit them again. The end. What was your favorite part of the story? My favorite part of the story is where George saw the octopus.